All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope all of you guys had an incredible weekend. We are live on AMP, so if you're listening on our podcast feed or watching on YouTube, don't forget that AMP is the very first place that you guys can get these shows. We have made it to the top 10 in our player rankings, and we're going to be doing number 10 today, Luka Doncic. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to The Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. And if for whatever reason you miss one of these videos and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. All right, let's talk some basketball. So before we go any further, I want to emphasize, obviously I took these rankings very seriously. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Everything after number 10 is still up in the air for me. I have stared at it and stared at it and stared at it nonstop, and I keep changing my mind on stuff. And the main reason why is every one of these guys is so close. To be clear, the 10 guys we have remaining are Jokic, Embiid, Luka, Tatum, LeBron, our small forwards, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Giannis. I think that's all of them. Jimmy Butler, I think, is the 10th guy. So there's 10 guys there. And in any given playoff series, any of those guys could win. In any given playoff series, I think there's a clear guy at the top in Nikola Jokic, right, who deserves that spot. And we're going to get there. Big shock. You guys, anybody who's been following this show knows that Jokic is going to be number one on my list. But after that, it's anybody's series. I've watched in a playoff series this year, Anthony Davis look like a slightly better player than Steph Curry, even though Steph Curry literally won a finals MVP the year before. That doesn't mean that the AD is better than Steph. It just means that these guys are all super close. And so in any given series, if a couple of role players are different one way or another, a couple things go one way or another, any one of these guys can win. I have Luka Doncic at number 10. The gap between Luka Doncic and the guys at the very top of the league is extremely small. So again, don't take it super, super personally if I have your favorite player a little bit lower on this list. My favorite player is LeBron James, as you guys know, and he's pretty low on this list. That doesn't mean that if a playoff series started tomorrow, I wouldn't want him on my team. It just means that, man, all these other guys are so good, and he's in his 21st season. And he's a million years old. You get the point. So all I'm saying is, again, I have Luka Doncic at number 10, but I view him as a bona fide top-tier superstar that is absolutely capable of being the best player on a championship team. This is just the way things broke in this particular season. And to make a long story short, the reason why I have Luka Doncic at 10 is because he missed the playoffs. So there's a couple of specific reasons why the Mavs missed the playoffs that I think Luka shares some culpability for. So we're going to get into that here later on. But let's start with the season recap. He averaged 32 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. He had a career high in points per game, also a career high 61% true shooting percentage. I think Luka Doncic is the best heliocentric shot creator in the league. Now, what does heliocentric mean? In the context of basketball, and I didn't coin this term, somebody else did, I couldn't tell you who did, but when I think of the heliocentric star, I think of either getting the defensive rebound, a teammate getting the rebound and immediately passing it to him, or him getting the inbounds pass from the baseline and him slowly bringing the ball up the floor. And every single possession is determined with a live dribble by that player near the top of the key. And the only time they ever give up the basketball is basically when they're tired. And usually heliocentric players, they spend so much energy creating shots that they're not very active when they give up the basketball. Most of them tend to stand 30 feet away from the basket and basically rest and occasionally take a catch and shoot jump shot. But for the most part, they determine the outcome of every single possession. That's what I think of with heliocentric players in the league. Think like prime James Harden, although obviously he's had to give up the ball a lot more in later versions of his career. Trae Young's another guy who I think of in that context. There's this particular breed of basketball player is becoming a little less common, which I think is a good thing. But that's what I think of when I think of heliocentric. I think Luka is the very best at it. He was the best high-volume pick-and-roll player in the entire NBA this year. There were 15 players who had at least 1,000 reps. This is that high-volume pick-and-roll list I've been using throughout our entire player rankings. Luka ranked number 1 on that list, averaging 1.15 points per possession. Good combination of deadly shot making and the ability to make all of the necessary reads. 1.09 points per ISO. If you remember our high volume ISO list, there were 25 players who did at least 250 possessions of isolation basketball. He ranked 7th on that list out of 25. And then 1.15 points per post up. There were 20 players in the NBA this year who ran at least 200 post ups, and Luka ranked 4th out of those 20 players. So one of the very best pick and roll player, one of the very best post up players in the league, and near the top of the high volume ISO players in the league as well. Shot making, pretty good. Not great in catch and shoot situations, 31% in catch and shoot. But just to give you an idea of just how heliocentric Luka Doncic is, of his 766 jump shots that he took this year, according to Synergy, only 87 were catch and shoots. Think of that again. 766 jump shots, all of them were off the dribble except for 87 in catch and shoot situations. He shot 39.4% on pull-up jumpers, though, which is very good. And of those pull-up jumpers, he made 158 from 3 on 34%, which bumps up the effective field goal percentage. So Luka's effective field goal percentage on pull-up jump shots was 51% last year, which is actually really good. Anything over 50% is really good. Remember, Paul George was at like 49%, and he's considered a great pull-up jump shooter. He shot 54% on floaters. He's got one of the best little short push shots in the league, 69% on hook shots, and 68% at the rim, which is really good for a forward as well. Also, and this is the part that's like almost impossible to learn as a basketball player. This is just a gift that some players have. Luka is one of the very best passers in the league. I have him in that very top tier. He's a master at manipulating help defenders. When he gets in pick and roll, he's just watching the help. He's just watching the low man. And if the low man doesn't come, he's going to keep working his way down. Remember, low man is the guy guarding the guy in the weak side corner. And his responsibility is to effectively make a read as to whether or not he needs to help in pick and roll at the rim. And so if Luka's going over the ball screen, he's got the defender trailing him on the play. The roll man is going hard towards the rim. He's just working his way downhill. And as soon as that screen defender steps up onto Luka, the lob is open. But if the low man steps over, he's hitting that skip pass to the corner every single time. Low man stays home, he's throwing that lob. Big man doesn't step up and stays back on the lob. That's where he's taking that little push shot in the lane or getting closer to the basket and pump fake and drawing a foul and making the shot with the defender draped on his back. He's just an absolute master at manipulating the help defenders in pick and roll, which is why he was the best high volume pick and roll passer in the league this year. Very similar in our best high volume pick and roll player in the league this year. Also, similar thing in post up situations. If he runs the ball screen and he gets a switch, it gets a smaller player. He's going to back him down to the post. He's going to just work his way into the lane. And if the second defender comes, he's making that kick out pass. No defender. He's going to shoot one of those little short jumpers or push shots in the lane. Luka, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Luka's a very polarizing player for me as a basketball fan because there are a lot of things that I absolutely love about his game. And those of you guys who have been following the show for a while could probably guess because my favorite, like he kind of fits a lot of my favorite archetype traits in basketball, but then he also has some things that drive me crazy. He's big and strong, which helps him to get to his spots in the playoffs well. You guys know how much I value strength in a playoff setting. He's a super versatile shot creator. Like, all of his possessions look the same, but his shot attempts tend to look very different. Like, he's going to, take a weird-looking push shot or floater or hook shot or jumper. They're all going to look different. There are a couple that are similar. Like, generally speaking, his step-back three is always going to his left. So if he's in, and really any step back jumper, if he's in a situation where he's working with a live dribble and he wants to go to a step back, he's going to step back going to his left. So hard right foot forward, pushing back, and kind of in that like a leaning fadeaway jumper kind of situation. And then in the post, if he's going to take a jumper, he's always going over his right shoulder. So he's going to fade over his right shoulder and shoot a jumper. If he goes over his left shoulder, it's going to be a hook shot or a push shot. He doesn't take fadeaways or off the dribble jumpers going to his right. So that's his one thing that is somewhat consistent. But other than that, almost every single shot attempt he takes look different. Almost every single layup he takes has kind of a different release angle or release point or things along those lines. He is a super versatile shot maker, which is what makes him so incredibly difficult to guard. Again, if you like, imagine you're guarding Luka, you're not expecting the same shot every time. You can't contest to a specific spot because he'll just adjust his release angle a little higher, a little lower. He'll pump fake and step through. There's way too many different types of shots that he can make. And I've always talked about how that versatile shot making just makes you more effective in the playoffs. He's also, as an archetype, that textbook rim pressuring playmaking forward that I've always gravitated towards. When we did the archetypes of players, it was big rim pressuring, playmaking forward, 3-level scoring forward, hyper athletic guard, center, and then like superstar center like Jokic and Embiid, and then unicorn was basically the last one on that list. My favorite of those 5 archetypes is the big rim pressuring, playmaking forward. So again, another reason why I should like Luka. He was top 10 in points in the paint this year with 886. I think he finished 9th, if I remember correctly. Consistently makes teams pay for overhelping and doubling, like we talked about earlier. He generated 22 points per game just off of his passes. So the Mavericks averaged 22 points a game directly off of Luka Doncic passes, which ranked 6th in the entire NBA this season. And lastly, the last trait that I've always gravitated towards with basketball players, Luka's a freaking psychopath, man. He is a crazy competitor. He absolutely wants to destroy you and let you know about it, which is something that I always really liked in basketball players. Players that really anybody in life that lacks competitiveness, it's something that I struggle to relate to. Obviously, I shouldn't say that I hate people like that. That's mean. But like I've always gravitated towards competitors. They're people that I can relate to. I try to find guys like that to play with me because I still take basketball very seriously. It's just a trait that I've always been very drawn to. But Luka has a lot of things that I dislike about basketball players. One, he's outrageously heliocentric. We were talking about heliocentrism earlier. That particular archetype is not an archetype that I like. He ran 655 ISOs this year, which was most in the league. To give you an idea of just how crazy that is, LeBron James and Kevin Durant, 2 of Luka's peers at his position, combined for fewer ISOs than Luka ran this season. So even though most of his shot attempts have a unique variety to them, his possessions all look the same. Luka's getting the ball in the backcourt, and he's walking it up the floor, which, by the way, is why the Mavs were 28th in pace and why I'm really excited about Kyrie being on the team to kind of bring more pace to the team. But he's going to walk the ball up the floor, and he's going to do one of 2 things. He's either going to call for a ball screen from the big man and start to work that equation I just talked to you guys about, trying to get the help defender to come out of the corner to help at the rim, to open up the skip pass, or to open up the lob pass if that guy doesn't help, or to take a shot if the big man doesn't help. Or if the big man switches, he's going to take him out to the perimeter, and he's probably going to take a step back 3. Or if there's a smaller defender somewhere on the floor that he really wants to target, say Patrick Beverley against the Clippers in the playoffs those years, he's going to call him into the ball screen, get the switch, and he's going to work him down to the post, and he's going to post him up and either make a play or look to score over the top. Or if a team is dumb enough, I think the Clippers at a couple points in those series straight up just put Pat Bev on Luka, which was incredibly foolish, and Luka torched them in those situations by just bringing the ball up the floor and attacking. He's looking to get their big man in pick and roll to make a decision or to target your worst defender and make a decision. He's doing that every single time, which is why he ends up with ridiculously high volume pick and roll numbers and ridiculously high volume isolation and post up numbers. There's value in that. I want to be clear. Him being great at that is super valuable. It shows in the points per possession. It's ironically one of the most effective forms of playoff offense in short bursts in pivotal playoff games. But that's literally all that Luka does. This is another stat to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. 93 catch and shoot jumpers with almost 700 ISOs. 93 catch and shoot jumpers with almost 700 ISOs. LeBron and KD combined to take 450 catch and shoot jumpers. Why? How did LeBron and KD end up between the two of them averaging 225 catch and shoot jumpers a year while Luka only took 93? How does that happen? It happens because LeBron and Kevin Durant play normal basketball. They slide in and function as part of a 5-man unit, a 5-man flow. Then, in a specific situation, when all of the circumstances call for it, LeBron or KD might start spamming in action. You will see that with LeBron. Like, he'll just flow as part of the team. And then it's like, oh, it's the fourth quarter against Denver in game 1. We've got a chance to steal this game. Come here, Jamal Murray. You can't guard in the Austin Reeves ghost screen action. And he'll run that time and time again. They will spam in short bursts in pivotal moments. But that's all they'll do. They don't do that from the opening tip of the first quarter through the entire game. And how do you function as part of a five-man flow? You have to be willing to do work off the ball. Both LeBron James and Kevin Durant operate a lot off the ball. LeBron this year did a ton of ball screening. So he'd give the ball to Austin Reeves or Dennis Schroeder or D'Angelo Russell or Russell Westbrook, and he'd set a ball screen and roll to the basket. LeBron also does a ton of duck-ins in the post, either through high-low action or sprinting up the floor in transition. If he has a smaller defender on him, he's going to try to get a deep seal when the defense isn't set and help. He does all of these things to be a functional offensive player when he doesn't have the basketball, including averaging 220 or 200, taking him and KD combining for 450 catch-and-shoot threes this year. Or catch-and-shoot jumpers, I should say. Kevin Durant himself, he runs a ton of stuff off of wide pin downs. If you go on my Twitter feed and go back about 2 weeks, because I think it was when I was in San Francisco, go back about 2 weeks and I posted a video of Kevin Durant in all of the off-ball work that he does to kind of demonstrate. It was from a game last season when he was with the Nets. But he'll run off of wide pin downs. He'll seal high post position and make spin-offs to the rim for lobs. And he just does a ton of work off the basketball. And so that allows them to disappear into the flow of games for long stretches and then grab the reins when they need to, which saves them fatigue, which saves them the repetitiveness that makes them easier to guard. Those are very important traits that I think it's better to be heliocentric in short bursts than it is to be heliocentric in totality, is basically the point. I've never been a fan of players that lean entirely into heliocentric basketball. I think it inflates per possession numbers for individual players, but it becomes easier to guard in large doses, which hurts them particularly at the end of games when a single defense has seen that action 50 times in a single game, and at the end of playoff series when the single defense has seen that action for 5 games. You'll see those players start to lose effectiveness towards the end of games and series, which is exactly what happened to James Harden. Hasn't happened nearly to the same extent with Luka because of the variety in his shot selection, but you do see Luka fatigue towards the end of playoff games. You do see Luka's efficiency drop a little bit at the end of those games. I think that's something that will go better for Luka in the future if he finds a way to kind of disappear into the flow more often so that when he grabs the reins, it's even more effective. The last crazy thing that the last thing that drives me crazy with Luka is he just simply does not care to defend or box out. He grabs 8.6 rebounds a game, but they are mostly uncontested defensive rebounds. I watched a lot of Dallas after the Kyrie Irving trade this year, and I can't tell you how many times in a pivotal moment when another team's on a run or in a fourth quarter possession when they're down 5 and they desperately need to stop, where Luka just will miss a box out. Because the shot goes up and he just turns and looks at the rim and just kind of starts walking in towards the rim. He just, or defensively, will just throw a sloppy closeout or fail to help in a low man situation. I thought this was probably the worst defensive season of Luka's career. And just in general with his commitment to the dirty work, it was almost like he let go of the rope. It was like the Kyrie Irving trade went down. He identified pretty quickly early on that they weren't very good. And I agree. I was the first one to tell you guys I didn't think the Mavericks were going to be good this season. It was going to be the following season if they had any chance. But Luka was culpable in a lot of ways because of his lack of commitment to the dirty work. So that's kind of the perfect segue into the reason why I had Luka down at 10. Remember that all these guys are close. All of these guys from 1 to 12, I think, are superstars. I had him above Kawhi because Kawhi's lack of availability just completely erases him from these equations. I had him over Devin Booker because just last season, the season before this previous one, Luka just utterly dominated Devin Booker in a playoff series and kind of embarrassed him down the stretch of the series. So to me, I didn't feel comfortable putting him below Devin Booker. But Luka has no case to be over any of the superstars that are ahead of him at this point in time, after the worst defensive season of his career, and a season where, again, guys, this is a league that allows 20 teams out of the 30 into the playoffs. 20 of the 30, 2/3 of the teams. There's no excuse for missing the playoffs in this field as a bona fide superstar unless you've been super injured to the point where you miss a ton of games. And I think Luka played like 65. This is not LeBron and Anthony Davis each playing 40 games. That's not how this season went. Missing the playoffs, missing the play-in in a 20 out of 30 team, in a league that allows 20 out of the 30 teams in, to me, hurts you on this list, which is why I have him down at number 10. And again, Kyrie Irving, I thought Kyrie was awesome after going to Dallas, and the numbers show that. The scoreboard showed that. It was Luka who declined. Kyrie's not as good a player as Luka, but Luka just did not play well down the stretch of the season. That said, I am a huge believer in Luka Doncic's ceiling. I do think he's going to work his way back up this list very soon. Again, specific things I want to see him work on: getting better at the dirty work, which starts by conditioning his body to get to the point where he can devote resources to that end without hurting the offensive end. And then 2, working on going extended stretches of basketball games as a cog in a 5-man system rather than always playing the heliocentric style. It will help his teammates get into a rhythm. It will save energy and reps to make him harder to guard at the later portions of games and in series. And it will make it more appealing for other stars to come play with him, which is the ultimate goal. You need to make Kyrie happy so that he doesn't ask for a trade. You need to, if Kyrie does ask for a trade because he's Kyrie Irving, you need to eventually convince somebody to say, I want to partner with Luka on this thing. And if all he does is the heliocentric thing, the only stars that are going to consider it are pick and roll guys like Anthony Davis. And there's like one of those who's really, really good in the league, right? Who's an actual star who just screens and rolls all the time. Like Jokic ain't going anywhere. I mean, Embiid and Luka would just be a really weird fit, so it's just one of those things. If he wants to get a legitimate co-star to commit long-term, he's going to have to demonstrate a willingness to play a more share the load type of offensive system. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. Like I said, at the time of me recording this on Sunday early morning, or late morning, I should say, I don't even know who I'm going to put at number 9 for Tuesday. But I will let you guys know. I'm going to think about it and sleep on it one more time. And I will let you guys know on Tuesday. As always, I appreciate your support, and I will see you next time.